So, on account of the holiday, I've decided to release this video a day in advance so that my dozens of fans can watch it without it interfering with their 4th of July plans for those who celebrate. Um, and this is a video that has been a long time coming because my occult thriller novel, Darkest in the Light, is now available on Amazon in paperback, hardcover, and ebook. So yeah, Darkest in the Light is one of my favorite stories I've ever written, honestly. It follows a young woman, Rowena Hartman, who has an interest in the occult and whose mother, a sort of locally famous Pulitzer-winning reporter, was tragically murdered, uh, and her father and Rowena's father was framed for the killing. So it's some serious stuff, and Rowena obviously was very, very traumatized by the event. And Rowena, as a child, has very vivid memories of something very different happening, right? She has this memory of her father and mother having an argument, um, only to be interrupted by something. Something attacked her mother and killed her and left her father to take the blame for it. Rowena hid in her room, right? Being, I think she was like a 12-year-old girl at the time. She hid in her room, obviously, and obviously the authorities were not really quick to believe that a giant monster killed the famous Cassandra Hartman, especially when the only witness to said event is a child who wasn't actually in the room when the event took place. But now Rowena it has followed in her mother's footsteps. Right, she has become a reporter herself, and she is working on a story about the mysterious Dagger Corporation, who they primarily make light bulbs. That is their deal. They do the kind of electric illumination thing, and they've sort of branched out. They're growing exponentially at this rate, and at the moment they seem to know an awful lot about Rowena's mother. In her interviews with them, they begin to talk in very cryptic terms, the president and CEO alike. And that obviously sets off the sort of warning alarms, and Rowena is kind of forced to navigate this very occult, dangerous space with the Dagger Corporation's motives being very shrouded in mystery. And Rowena is not clueless, don't get me wrong, and I think that's sort of what makes Darkest in the Light unique in a way, is that Rowena isn't your typical, let's face it, your typical stupid, helpless protagonist. She is not an entirely perfect character either. Don't get me wrong. She is particularly suited to her line of work. And in this case, she knows an awful lot about an awful lot of useful information about witchcraft and the occult, which really helps when the Dagger Corporation starts behaving in a very mystical, esoteric manner. Because the world of Darkest in the Light is steeped in very old school, real world magic. It is a modern story in a modern world, and Rowena is a nerd. If we're being totally honest, that's like one of her most like defining traits. And I think Rowena, this glamorous sort of glamorous reporter who's kind of famous, she is, out of all of my characters, the one I actually kind of relate to the most, because she is interested in Gothic culture and classic literature. She is obsessed with Bram Stoker's Dracula and Alice in Wonderland and Edgar Allan Poe and William Shakespeare, even. She's indoorsy, but not necessarily an introvert, and she considers herself something of an amateur witch, as opposed to my own like armchair status. But she even more than that considers herself a bit of a psychic, and she practices her psychic abilities and her magical abilities, as well as a kind of um, a very bastardized like chaos magic, you might say. The sort of lights flicker in her presence, and she has a certain affinity for technology, and she tries not to explain or think too hard about such things. Um, for those not in the know about chaos magic, by the way, it in the real world it's taken on a few different forms and styles over the years, but I guess it can kind of loosely be described as I understand it, it's sort of a practice relying more so on belief and synchronicity over ceremony and history and these sort of old tried and true rituals and practices. It's sort of the intuitive, personalized, kind of like MacGyver-esque sort of magic, right? At least that's how it seems to me. And while I don't claim to be an expert, all I can say is uh, I tried to be respectful while also trying to tell a good story. Um, in that vein, I am sort of using that sort of intuitive kind of magic, shall we say, the sort of magic of instinct and hope and faith, and I'm contrasting it with the magic that the Dagger Corporation is interested in, the this sort of alchemy and hermetic rituals of this particular Black Lodge, if you will. And I think that that all comes together to make for a very interesting story. It's no wacky adventure, don't get me wrong. This is a mystery and a thriller and a little bit of a horror novel with heavy occult themes and aesthetics. And it is a dangerous game Rowena is caught up in. Because obviously, Rowena doesn't want to burden the people around her. She doesn't want to rope them into this mess. Yet she is forced to lean on her friends and to seek out allies in her quest to bring down the Dagger Corporation. These self-proclaimed bringers of light and knowledge. She is forced to learn and adapt, and she often feels a little like she is a step behind, but never far enough back that she feels utterly hopeless. At least not until close to the end. And Darkest is one of those stories where I I just knew that a twist was coming, and I knew exactly what that twist was, and I knew what the twist after that was going to be, and yet still managed to surprise me. There were wrinkles in the story that I was not expecting, and Rowena's rather basic powers continued to develop in very interesting ways, and it was hard, but I think I managed to avoid any instance of any sort of like Deus Ex Machina per se. None of that sort of God in the machine swooping in at the last minute with an hitherto unknown power or ability. Rowena is no perfect angel or devil, if you prefer, in this story, and I like to think that most of her success is earned. And she is, in the end, just a young woman caught up in this war between light and darkness, the rational and the instinctive, the ancient and the new, the war between master and apprentice. Rowena, who is trying to do her best to do the right thing, who is fighting for answers and for love and acceptance, who wants to be this this very important person to succeed in life. She wants to be the woman that her mother always wanted her to be. Um, Only in the end, that that sort of question becomes something else entirely. And it's a question that I'm not sure our dear Rowena really wants answered. Um, but maybe you would like the answer. Maybe you'd like to buy Darkest in the Light and see for yourself what kind of horrors will emerge. And until then, I do hope you like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Comment below if you have any questions about Darkest in the Light, and just let me know how you feel about the story in general. So, yeah, bye.